Hi, thanks for ordering the short-term rental Airbnb model that I created. I want to make this video so you can kind of get a feel for how this model works, especially for people who aren't super comfortable in Excel or Google Sheets. This is meant to kind of bridge that gap. It's something that I like to offer. I think a lot of other people don't do it, but it provides a lot of value. Um, So, as a short term Airbnb model, I thought it was important to make sure that there are some kind of visuals that you can use as a quick reference point, to see how all of your inputs are working and, essentially how you're making money. What does your revenue look like, your cash flow, your occupancy? So, a lot of these things will go into more detail in terms of how you can adjust those in the model. But for now, this is kind of the output of the model. So this is something that you could share with an investor or somebody who's looking to get into kind of maybe the short-term rental space or whatever. Um, so we have four charts, and I do want to say if you need another visual or something that you're familiar with, or you have a KPI that you use to track things, definitely let me know. I will add it to the model for free. I really want you to squeeze as much value out of this as you can. But anyway, so the four that I kind of have set up here, sort of out of the box, are kind of this look at your revenues and cash flows and occupancy for the first 5 years. So this model goes out 5 years. If you need it to go out longer, again, you can reach out to me. I do have a custom model that can go for longer than that. And then we have a breakdown of kind of what your expenses look like and how much of a percent they make up um, of your total expenses. So you can see that your mortgage, under this assumption that you have a mortgage on the property, but I'll show you how to change that too. So that's about 36% of your expenses, and then you can see the rest kind of flows from here. You got cleaning costs, hosting fees, taxes, and then other expenses, which are like consumables and things like that. And then I'm using a metric called cash on cash return. Feel free to kind of Google what that is. But that's at one metric, and this again comes into play with if you have another metric that you like to use to measure your success, just let me know. It'll be easy enough to add to the sheet. And then this one is a cash balance versus the cash flow each year. So you can see up front there are some startup costs here. So like down payment, and maybe you had to kind of update the bathrooms or kitchen or whatever. Those you can put in front load into the sheet, and then it'll show you at what point you kind of break even on your cash flow, or it'll give you a really good idea of financing that you're going to need up front. So maybe you need to borrow $30,000 or whatever it is, right? So this allows you to do that as well. So it's a very flexible model. Um, And that's kind of the first tab. That's the dashboard overview. So the next tab here is where you can really make this your own. And this is where you have the chance to make this model do exactly what you're doing on a day-to-day basis, right? And how your short-term rental works. So you have a lot of inputs here. So anything in blue is something that you can change, and the entire model is automated and will adjust accordingly. So again, depending on your market and your region and what your rental rates are, you can put them in here. So this is your weekday rental, weekend rental. So the model lets you tweak things differently based on demand for weekend and weekday. Then there's an increase in rental rates, which you can change this as well. So that would just be year over year. And then, of course, there's a cleaning fee. And the way that all flows through is you'll put the fee that you charge to your whoever's staying at your Airbnb or whatever your short-term rental is, and then the cost will come in later. So I'll show you those. There's an increase that's kind of automatically in the model, but you can, if you want to keep that flat for the next 5 years, you can put that at 0%. And this is really important. So occupancy is a lot of what drives this model, because that's how essentially you make money, right? If you have 50% occupancy, then you're only going to make money on the 50% of the time that people are staying at your Airbnb. So, hi there, picking up where we left off on the short-term rental model. So we were talking about the occupancy and how it works. So you enter the occupancy. This might have to be an average or something, but if your weekdays are only 50% occupied, you would put that in here, and the model is going to know to kind of tweak the numbers accordingly. So you'll only make money, so to speak, on the stays that actually happen if you had a 50% occupancy rate. On the weekends, you might have a 100% occupancy rate. You might have, again, it might be 50, it might be exactly the same. But this model lets you choose and kind of have more granularity as to the weekend occupancy and the weekday occupancy. And then, of course, you can have a different rental rate for that as well. And then there is a kind of baseline annual increase in your occupancy rate. So assuming that you're getting more efficient or you're getting more reviews, and your business is essentially doing better, then you'll have a better occupancy rate as the years go on, right? So for expense assumptions, these are pretty straightforward. Just put in the monthly expense that you are estimating, or if you have real numbers, and great, use an average, maybe of the last couple months. So landscaping and things like that. Again, depending on where your rental is, this could be high, this could be low. So put your own numbers in there, of course. Utilities per month. I think 500 is probably a little bit high, but I don't know. It again depends on your usage, kind of what your customer base is doing. You may have security, you may have streaming services and different perks like that. You may have parking. So just tried to add as much as we could in here. If you think of anything else, generally I would say put it in other costs. If it's very important and it's a line item that needs to be its own thing, just reach out to me and let me know. I can send you a model that has that as its own line. And then, of course, just to be safe, we're putting in inflation rates, so things get more expensive over time, especially in this economy right now. So we've got a 5% in there, which actually is low for right now, but on average, 5% is a pretty good estimate going forward. And then you have hosting fees, right? So I think those are typically tied at around 3%. If it's different, just put the number in there. All the costs will flow accordingly. Taxes as a percent of revenue, 10% is a pretty decent baseline, but if you have better numbers, obviously put in whatever you have. But we did want to account for taxes as, those do start eating up your margins. Real quickly, then you have down payments and kind of startup costs. So if you have to pay something up front, or you need to fix up the house that you just purchased, this is where you would do it, and then I'll show you kind of the effect of that afterwards. Per stay assumptions are pretty important too. How long on average do customers stay at your place? It could be 3 days, could be 5 days, but this is going to drive the kind of revenue model that we have. Cleaning costs, of course, this is where the cost side comes in. So the fee would be what you're making. The cost is how much it costs to actually get things cleaned every time someone stays there. And then you have consumables like cleaning supplies, toilet paper, etc. per stay as well. So a lot of things are driven off of the per stay basis, which is why it's so important to get your occupancy right and things like that. This here would be for how you got the property. If you own the property outright, you don't have a mortgage on it or anything, just put 0 here because you're not going to have any costs associated with it. Generally, people are either rental arbitrage, so they rent the property. You would want to put that in here, whatever your monthly cost is, so that it flows through. And if you kind of bought it on a mortgage, what's your monthly payment, and maybe different taxes and things like that. So we try to capture that cost as well, because those are generally going to be one of your bigger costs. And then if you do have internal staff or a property management firm, so if you don't manage it yourself, you're managing it remotely, etc., we have functions here that you can put in your numbers as well. And those will all flow through. Yeah, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this next calculations because this is kind of all the magic in the math, right? But all that this calculations really does is take all the assumptions you put here and actually does the kind of profit and loss and expenses and revenue math. I would say it would behoove you to look at this and understand it. but you don't have to. And that's part of the reason why you made the order, right? Okay, so picking up where we left off, I think we were just looking at the calculations tab. And again, I wouldn't spend too much time on this tab. This is just where all of the calculus goes on, and how all the revenue is forecasted, all your expenses are forecasted, and any of your startup costs, and what your cash flow balance would be at any point in time over the next 5 years. Um, in order to kind of see the calculations in a much more simplified manner, I made this summary. And this is, I think, very important and is going to help you kind of digest all the inputs and assumptions that you made very, very quickly. So you can see your rental revenue year over year, your cleaning revenue, all of your costs, kind of how they flow through. If you have any startup costs, so like we said at the beginning, if you had to do a lot of repairs and maintenance or renovations, we're going to kind of front load all those costs, and that's going to have an effect on your cash flow balance, which is down here. It's going to show you at what point you would sort of break even on cash, which looks like for now it's in year 4. What one quick kind of pro tip is that if you want to see what happens when you change certain inputs, like if you want to change your rental rates, you can do this. So basically, you can copy this. You do something that's called pasting values. So let's do that. We will just do this really quickly. Okay, so now you've kind of locked in what your inputs and assumptions were and what the output was, right? So then you can go here, and let's say that you want to up your weekend rental rate to $250 because you're seeing a lot of demand, or your ratings are like really, really good, right? Okay, so that's obviously going to change a lot of your revenue here, and then you're going to be able to see what the difference is, right? So we made this one static based on your old rental rate, so you can see your revenues change here. So now in your new rental rate, if you're doing $250 on the weekends, you're making significantly more money. So you've got $42,000 versus $39 in the first year, but by the 4th year, you're making a good, $6,000 more per year, and this pushes your break even in cash into year 3 instead of year 4. So again, you can see the effects of a change like that and how important it is to make those changes, or other things that you can tweak. So you could change your expense assumptions or whatever. But I think that's a really quick way to kind of see what the effective changes are over time. And of course, you can play with this model as much as you want. That's the whole point of it, right? Is that you're kind of at the helm, and you can make the changes that you want to make. You can visually see them and what the effect of them is going to be before you actually do it, right? Which I think is a huge value. And I think that's it. And again, so another thing you could do is just try to look at these snapshots as they change, right? So if you're changing something in the inputs, all of these charts are dynamic. They're all going to change. Everything is tied to itself in this model. So anyways, hope you enjoy it. And if you have any questions, of course, let me know. Since I built it, I can kind of tweak it as I need to, kind of based on what you might be looking for. So anyways, thank you and have a good day.